I'm gonna minimize Chrome for a second and get rid of all this crap. And so I have my MMP 100 folder here, and I have Sublime Text over here. And I'll show you guys the way that I do this, and then if you want to do it, there's a couple other ways to do it as well. So what I'm going to do is create a new folder first. So I'm going to go to MMP 100, and I'm going to hit Command-Shift-N to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this website. So I know it's a website. And that's all I'm going to do to get started. And then what I usually do is I just drag my folder onto Sublime. And that opens up this little side thing that shows me my files. And that's really useful for a lot of different reasons that probably won't be clear until you start making more files and stuff like that. But I always like to have it like that. You don't have to have it like that, but it makes it a lot easier. So another way to do that, if I go to Sublime, I can also open, if I go to Open and go to Desktop, MMP 100 website, I can open a folder. So it's not actually opening a file, I'm opening the directory, and that'll show me my website folder over here. Okay, so I can also change this. I can go to View in Sublime, and I can go to, where is it? Hide Sidebar, and I can go to Show Sidebar. So if that sidebar isn't there, it may be because you didn't open a folder, but it may also be because you hid the sidebar. So I always like to have this here so I know that it's working. So what I'm going to do now is create my first page for my website. So I have a blank page here. This is just a text editor. It's sort of like Word or Pages or any other text editor you've used, but it doesn't have any like styling. It's not for like creating a nice looking document. It's for creating the code that makes a website. So if I hit Command S, I'm going to open up my file system. I'm going to go in here, go to website, and the first page of every website is just index.html. No capitalized I, okay, lowercase I, index.html. Every single website has this as its home page. And the other pages, we can make them separate, but you always have to start with index.html. So when I click Save, now it's going to say HTML. And one of the things that's nice about Sublime, you can see down here in this bottom corner, it says HTML. It knows that it's an HTML page. If I click on this, you can see there's a lot of options for different languages. And all this does is it changes the way that my code looks. It doesn't change the functionality of the code, but it highlights certain parts of my code to make it easier to read. And so if I name this file index.html, then it knows it's an HTML file. It's automatically going to choose HTML over here. So I don't have to worry about changing that, but this is, it's going to help me write the code. So we're going to start writing our HTML file. I'm going to start from scratch, but I'll show you guys some, in the next class, I'll show you guys some shortcuts that make it a lot faster to write. But we're going to start from scratch so we can talk about the basics of how this works. And once we get a certain amount into it, we will actually look at the website. But right now, if we look at this, nothing will happen. So let's start writing. I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to increase my font size a bit so it's easier for you guys to read. But you don't need to do that. And we're going to get started. So let's stop for a second. Does everybody have a website folder and an index.html page? Everybody's good? Okay. If you have any questions or need to stop for a second, just let me know. Okay, so the way an HTML tag looks is you start with these angle brackets, and then inside of the angle brackets you have a tag name. The first one is always HTML. This is just telling our browser that we're using the language HTML, so it knows how to deal with that. And then at the end, we always have a closing bracket. And if you're using Sublime, most likely when you go like, when you hit the slash, this backslash, or this actually the forward slash, when you hit a new angle and then the forward slash, it's going to figure out that you're trying to close your HTML tag. So I'm going to hit Command S and save that. So everything that goes inside of my HTML document has to go in between these two HTML tags. And so if I go into the middle here and I hit Enter, now I'm on kind of a new line. So Sublime is going to indent for me. And this is going to help me kind of organize my code. So there's different sort of conventions for how people like to look at their code. But this is going to help me indent my code. So let me do it again. So if I start with angle bracket, so this is like the less than sign and then HTML. Once I have that in there, if I hit another angle bracket and then hit forward slash, which is also the question mark key, it knows that I opened the HTML over here. And so now it's closing it over here. You got it? Okay. So Sublime does that on purpose because it knows that you're writing HTML. You can turn that off and then just write out your HTML. But obviously, it's faster if you don't. OK, so then I'm going to hit Enter. And now I have my first part of my document. So this is sort of like saying to the website, like, this is HTML. So everything that's inside of here is my HTML. So you know what that looks like. So now as I continue to write HTML in Sublime, it knows like what different parts, it knows the language, right? You can see when I put an angle bracket right here, it gives me all of these options. And so it actually knows everything that's part of the language for the most part. And so that's going to help me write my code a little bit. I don't actually need this. So if I get annoyed by this, I can hit the escape key and it'll go away. I know all the HTML tags, so I don't really use it. But it is really helpful when you get started. So if I type in H, I can see the options. And if I type in HE, this head tag, that's the first thing that we're going to create. So I'm going to click on that. And it's going to make a new area for me. Okay, if you see this, Sublime is like a free software. So every once in a while, they're going to ask you to give them money. But you don't have to give them money. You can just say cancel. Okay, so the next tag we're going to write. So I'm going to hit Enter and go to the next line. I'm still indented one over, so that's good. So the next tag I'm going to write is body. So if I type in BO, body comes up. I can just hit Enter, and it's going to make that whole tag for me. Okay, so every HTML page has a head and a body. Okay, so you can think about it like a person. Your head is like does thinking and like knows stuff. And your body does like action and like is in the world. It's not a very good metaphor, but that's what they used. But the stuff that is in the head, we don't see on the page. It just tells us about how the page is supposed to work. The stuff that's in the body is what we actually see on the page. So the body is like what's visible. So those are the two main parts of any HTML page. Every HTML page basically looks like this. Any questions? You guys are good so far? Yeah.
Do you need to use Doctype? You don't, right?
No, not anymore. Yeah. But yeah, so what Asfi was asking about is you used to have to do this thing where you would say doctype equals HTML or like, oh no, I don't even remember. It's kind of.
It's above HTML. You do exclamation mark doctype.
Yeah.
HTML.
So you used to have to say which type of document you were using. We all use HTML5 these days, and so they've kind of gotten rid of it. But it's a good thing to point out because what this is called when you write something like this is an attribute. So within an HTML tag, you have the name of the tag, and then you can put other information before the end of this bracket here, and that information is called an attribute. So that's something that changes the way that this tag works. So we don't actually have to use this anymore, but we used to have to say what type of HTML it was because there was a bunch of different HTML standards, and people realized that that was annoying, and so they just got rid of it. The browsers have been like much faster to make changes as the web has gotten more popular. So writing this stuff has gotten a lot easier because the browsers will just fill it in for you, basically. Okay. So we're going to add 2 parts, and then we're going to take a look at our website. So if I go to the head section and I hit enter, notice it indents again. So it has 2 indentations here. This isn't necessary for the code to work, but it makes it easier for me to read because I can see what part is part of the head versus what part is part of the body just by how far over it is. So the head starts here, and we're going to add our first content. So what we're going to add here is a title for our page. So again, the way that I did that, remember Sublime will fill in a lot of stuff for me. So if I hit a angle bracket, a less than sign, and I type in title, and then I hit enter, it builds the rest of the tag for me. And then this is our first actual content that's going to show up somewhere on the page. In between these 2 tags, so in between my head tag, I have a title, and in between the title tag, I actually have the title of my website. I'm just going to call it my website. So when we have content, it goes in between the tags. Notice that this is the beginning of the title. This is the end of the title. So anything that goes over here is not going to be part of my title. So my title has to go in between the opening tag, this one, and the closing tag with the slash, this one. And that's actually what's going to show at the top of the browser. If we're looking at a browser page like the OpenLab, that's right here. It's not actually on the page. It's what you see in the tab up here is the title. And if you want to look, I should have mentioned this before, but if you want to look at the HTML of any web page in Chrome and in most browsers, you can go to View, go under Developer, and click View Source. And here you see a bunch of HTML. So here's the Doctype that Asfi was talking about. If we increase the size a little bit, here's the title. So we see title, web development, blah, 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 blah. And then end title. Okay, there's a bunch of other stuff in here that we don't have to worry about right now. But we can see here's the head section. And if we scroll down a bit, there's a bunch of scripts and all sorts of crap in here. And here's the body section. So the head section ends, and then the body section begins. And then if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, the end of the body and the end of the HTML page. Okay, so there's a lot of other stuff in here. Obviously, we haven't talked about yet, but we can see it's the basic same stuff. Another thing that you can do as you're starting to learn web development that's really useful in Chrome as well as the other browsers, if I go to View, Developer, and Inspect Elements, that's going to open up this little sidebar over here. And you can see there's our HTML. And you can actually click on all the different parts and see what they correspond to. So if I wanted to, see how is this designed, I can right-click on here, go to Inspect, and it's actually going to open it right here. And I can even edit this if I want to, and change the website. This isn't a permanent change, but I can change something to see what it'll look like. If I refresh, it'll go back to the beginning. So I'll talk about this more as we get more into it, but these tools are really useful as you're starting to learn web development. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Sublime. So let's add something to the body, and then we'll preview the website. So in the body, we have all sorts of different tags that relate to different types of content on the page. And one of those things is called a heading. This is like, the title or the main part of the page. And the way that we create a heading is with an H1. And if I type in H, you can see there's a whole bunch of different options. And so H1 is the biggest heading, followed by H2, H3, da 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 da. This is kind of like old semantic web that we don't use quite as much anymore because we can do other types of things. But when the web first came out, actually we didn't look at that. Let's look at the first web page ever real quick. And then we'll come back to our HTML. First web page. Okay, so this was the first website that was ever published. And you can see it's really, really basic. This is an H1. So if I inspect this, you can see that's an H1. Here's our HTML, head, body. Here's our H1. There's links. So all these blue things are just links. And we'll get to that in a second. There's a paragraph. And there's, I actually forget what a DL is. I haven't used one of these in a while. What is a DL? This is an old tag. I forget what that is. HTML DL. Description list. Okay. So yeah, a lot of tags kind of go out of style after a while. They get replaced by other tags. But this oh, I see. So it's basically like you have a definition and then a description. So yeah, I kind of forgot about that. Okay. Anyway, that's the first website. So it was really, really basic. We only had like simple tags. There wasn't like, fancy grid layouts and stuff like that. So let's add our title. So this eventually we're going to create an interactive story. Let's call this my, or choose your own adventure. My choose your own adventure. And another shortcut that you can do in Sublime, this one is a little bit trickier, but I use it a lot, is if I hold Command and Option. This is for Mac. It's a little bit different on PC, but I think it's kind of the same. If I hold Command and Option and hit the period key, which is also the greater than sign or the closing bracket, it'll fill in the tag that I want, which is that H1. But I can also just do in Sublime, I can do less than slash, and it's going to stick it in there for me as well. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. Okay, so now we're going to preview this site, and this is a little bit harder than it should be, but it'll take us a second to do it. Any questions before we do that? Okay, sweet. So let's do this, and then yeah, we'll do a couple more things. So usually when we have a website on the internet, it's on a server somewhere, and we make a request to the server. We say we want to go to http:/google.com, and it looks at that, and it sends us back the data that we need. We don't have a server in this room, and we don't have a server on the computer, so we can't recreate that. But what we can do is make a fake server. And so we can build a fake server inside of our website folder that will be treated like a server by our computer to recreate that exchange. But to do that, we need a couple things. So under Tools, you may see this thing that says Command Palette. If you don't see that, you need to install the Command Palette. So if you don't see Command Palette, then what you will see is something down here that says Install Command Palette. So you may need to do that. But when you open the Command Palette, you're going to see a little interface like this that lets us do different things in Sublime. Does everybody see that? Everybody's got it? Okay, cool. All right, so we've got the Command Palette. So what we need to do is install a package. So I usually just type install, and it'll come up as the first option. But you can also type install package, whatever. I usually just type install. And in this interface, I can click on this, or I can just hit enter. And you may miss it because it goes really fast. So I'm going to show you guys again. So the other way I can get this is I can hit Command-Shift-P. And look at the very bottom down here, because this is a little bit different than what you're used to seeing. Look at the very bottom down here. When I hit Install Package, you're going to see a little animation. It was like really, really quick, right? But it just shows you it's opening up this new part of our interface. So this is the, so again, if I hit Escape, I'm going to hit Command-Shift-P. This is the command palette, which just gives me all these different options. I want to install a package, so I'm going to type install. And install package is what I want, so I'm going to hit Enter. This brings me to a new area, and I want this thing called server. Oh, I already have it, so it's not going to come up because I already have it. So I'll have to delete it real quick. So I'm going to go to my packages. Sorry, just ignore this for a second. Okay, so Command-Shift-P, install, Enter. And then I want something called Sublime Server. Oh, it still thinks I have it. Okay, let me user. I may need to quit and is it in here? Yeah, it's in here. Okay. Okay, now I think I've deleted it. Let's try it again. Sublime Server. There we go. So if you type in Sublime Server like that, you're going to see this package. It says dead project at the beginning. That just means that the developer who created it isn't updating it, but it still works. So once you have Sublime Server, just hit Enter. You're going to see that little animation in the bottom left. It doesn't take very long, and then it's going to disappear. So it worked, but nothing happens right away. The way you know it works is if you go back to Tools, go to Sublime Server. You should see Start Sublime Server. Just click that. Nothing happened again, right? The server started. So when we're doing web development, there's not always like obvious. It doesn't necessarily like show us what's happening. So if you see the server started, the way that we access the server is we go to Chrome. I go to localhost :8080. That's where the server is going to show up. So if I hit Enter, we see Sublime Server, and there's my website. And so here we see our website. So I'll put this URL in Discord if you want to copy and paste. Or you can actually just, you could just click on it and it'll go there. So yeah, and so once you get there, if you go to View Developer, View Source, there's our HTML page, right? And if we right-click and go to Inspect, we can see our HTML page. This stuff that got added in here, this was done by a couple Chrome extensions I have on. Let me turn those off. Okay. So you might see some stuff in there if you have some Chrome extensions installed or whatever, but you should see basically just your web page. So let's pause for a second, make sure everybody's got all of that working, and then we'll add a few more things. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So go to Sublime. Okay. Oh, it's running. Okay. Okay, let's go back. Did you save this? Yeah. Command S. Okay. So yeah, open that up. Go to desktop. Oh, website. That's fine. Make sure this is index.html. I wouldn't use this full screen because you're gonna want to be able to go back and forth more easily. So yeah, just like move that over there somewhere. And let's go look here again. Click reload. Can you click on the browser bar?
I can go on.
No. Try. Do you have Chrome on the computer? So use the search. Type in Chrome. Okay. Just hit enter. You can ignore that or click start. Either one. So type in your local host. Colon 88 and hit enter. Okay. So let's run the server again because you hadn't saved the file yet. So go to tools and stop, and then go back and start, and try to reload. Oh, actually, okay. So one of the things you want to make sure that you have your folder open in Sublime because it's going to run the server from the folder. So click OK there. Go to your Finder and drag your website folder onto Sublime. Yeah. Okay. Now go to click on Sublime. And go to Tools and restart, or yeah, start Sublime Server and refresh it. Okay, then click on your website folder, and there's the website. Okay.
So the folder has to be in Sublime for this to work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you save your? Click OK. Click Save. Hit Command S on the HTML. Make sure it's in your folder. So click on the thing. Click on the arrow thing, and go to your website folder and save there. Click Replace. So yeah, you must have opened the folder on top of it at some point. Okay, so try running the server again. Just click OK, see if you can open Chrome and see if it works. Okay, let's make sure you saved Sublime. So save again. Yeah. And then quit. Fully quit. So go to Sublime Text and quit. Okay. Then drag your website folder onto the Sublime icon in the dock. Okay. And go to Tools and run the server again. Okay, now try going to localhost again. So if you just type in like LO, it'll probably fill it in. You can just hit enter. Okay, there you go. Click on website. Yeah. Okay, thank you. You're good?
Yeah, so just where does it see it on the website?
Type install and hit enter. Oh, you did that?
Yeah, I just don't know how to.
Okay, hit escape. Okay, go to Tools and Sublime Server Oh, you already did that. Okay. Go to Chrome. Type in localhost colon 8080.
80.
Yeah. And then click on those. Yeah. You good?
Yeah.
Okay, remember it's lowercase I.
Oh, lowercase.
Yeah. So let's close this for a second. Can you open your folder? Can you go to this view, the three boxes? Yeah. Okay, right click on index.html, rename. I is lowercase, that's all you have to change. Okay, hit enter. Okay, drag the website folder onto Sublime. Okay, open your index.html. Something, did you change the theme?
Change the theme.
Yeah. Okay, that's okay. It looks a little weird, but oh, this one is HTML, not index.
Oh,
Okay, save it, Command S. Okay, do you have the Sublime Server tools?
yeah.
Okay, you got it. Hit enter. And then type in Sublime Server. You got it. Hit enter. Okay, now go to Tools. Sublime Server Start. Okay. Now go to the browser, hit the plus, type localhost, colon. It's okay. So you delete it because it filled in some stuff that we don't want, so just delete back to the beginning. Okay, localhost, colon. Colon is the two dots. Yeah, 8080. Okay, enter. There you go. Click on the website. Okay, there's definitely something weird. Let me try and just see something real quick. Okay, so how did you get these underlined?
I don't know. That's the alt
Don't use alt. Don't use alt. Use shift. Sorry. So for these, they should just be these guys, not the underlined ones. Okay. Let's just do it quick. Replace. So it's find this and replace this. Okay. And let's do another one. And find this. Replace this. There you go. Okay. Command S to save. And then reload the page. Okay, cool. Good to know. I didn't realize. Okay, so yeah, sorry, it's shift and then the angle brackets. All right. Is everybody good? You're good? Did you save it? Command S. Oh, click on Sublime. So you're in Safari right now. So click on there, hit Command S. Okay, go back to Chrome. Localhost. Colon. Colon is the two dots, like that one. Yeah, 8080, 8080. Enter. There you go. Click on the website. Sweet. Okay. All right, good job, guys. So let's just do a couple more things, and then I'll give you guys some time to play around before we leave. Okay. Let's finish up some HTML stuff. So one thing that honestly doesn't really do that much, but is supposed to be there, is this thing called a meta tag. And a meta tag is something that tells the browser like how to act. And so there's a bunch of different meta tags. They don't have a closing tag because you can't put content in them. They're just telling the browser what to do, but they have attributes. So we can do a meta and say char set. That means character set. That means what characters do we want to use. And so this is what an attribute looks like inside of a tag. There's a name, there's an equal sign, and then there's a quotation mark, quotation marks for the value of that character set. So the one that we're going to use is the default UTF-8. And what this basically does, if we Google this term, so I'm going to go back to Chrome and just paste UTF-8. This is just Unicode. So it's an encoding that tells us what characters to use. These are all the UTF-8 characters. And so when we say our website uses UTF-8, nothing changes, but it's going to tell the browser what characters we want to use. And so if we want to use more characters, we might use something else. And one thing that you'll notice, something that I don't really use this all that much anymore, but there's a website called the HTML Validator. And this will tell you if your HTML is written correctly. So it could be useful. I'll put this in the Discord as well. And I'll link it in the YouTube video later. Okay, so in the validator, you can put your HTML and it'll tell you if it's right or not. And so let's see, if I take my HTML, I'm going to copy it and paste it in here. And I'm going to check. And oh, it says I need a language attribute. Yeah, okay. I don't have a Doctype. Yeah, I should have that. So those are good, but the one that if I didn't have this meta, I would also get an error for that. Although now I don't see it. So maybe they changed the rules. I don't know. Let's see. Let's check it again. Huh. Okay, maybe they don't care about that anymore. Maybe the browsers do that for us now too. Let's see if I fix these. So doctype HTML and lang gets English. Oh, okay. So sorry, this stuff changes all the time. Maybe they don't care about that anymore. But they used to always care about this. So let's go over those two things that it does care about because they aren't really necessary because the program will do it for you. But the doctype thing, we already kind of talked about this. Doctype is basically saying what type of document we're using. Usually it's a tag that goes up before the HTML tag. If you don't have it, Chrome actually fills it in for you, which is why it doesn't really matter. But it's good to have it there, I guess. And then the other one, it was telling me, oh, it says it wants the language. So an attribute I can put for my HTML page is a language. So if I say lang is short for language equals, and then en is short for English. This is actually for when Google is searching through different websites to find different results. If you have a website that's in Italian, you would want to say this is Italian, so Google would know to find that. So it's not really necessary, but it is good to have that on there. I don't think we need to put anything else in here quite yet, so let's put some more stuff in our HTML. So after we have an H1 tag, the next kind of basic tag that we use is a paragraph tag. And this is where we just fill in any kind of paragraph text. So I'm just going to put P for paragraph. And I'm going to say, welcome to my website. And then I'm going to hit the less than and the /, and it's going to fill in that P for me. And so now when I go back to Chrome, so I'm going to click on Chrome. I'm not like relaunching the browser or going to a new window. I'm just going to hit the refresh button in the browser. And now we're going to see the new content that I created. So if you change your code, if I go to Sublime and I write new code in here, I won't see it on the browser until I hit this little refresh button. All right, so the other stuff that we can add in here, there's a bunch of different tags. There's a good place to look at tags. Let's see. So the MDN is the Mozilla Developers Network. Mozilla is the company that makes Firefox, and they also like started JavaScript and stuff like that. This is where the best information regarding HTML and web development is. And so there's a lot of stuff in here that it will go over. So there's, it kind of talks about all the tags. This is kind of an overview, but there's probably a list of all the tags somewhere. Anyway, let's just add a couple more tags. So I have a paragraph. You can use an HR. This is like a break in the page. It makes like a little line. That might be kind of useful. What else can we make? I guess we can just go ahead to making links. So if we're creating, let's actually add an image first, and then we'll add a link. So if I want to add an image to my page, I can use the image tag, which is just img. And the image doesn't have any text content, so we don't need to close it. But we need an attribute, which is the source for the image. So an image source shortcut is src. And it's an attribute just like my character set or my language. The source equals a link to where the image is in my project. So I don't actually have an image. Let's grab an image real quick. So I'll go to the Finder. And I'm just going to use one of my self-portraits just to make it easier. So I'm going to grab this self-portrait, and I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to hit Command-C. And go back here and hit Command-V. So there's my self-portrait. If I go back to Sublime, you can see there's the self-portrait right there. And so if I want to load this self-portrait, I just have to put the path to where it is. And so what I can do is I can just write self-portrait1.jpg. And that's going to put the image on the page. So if I go back to Chrome and reload, there's my image. It's kind of big. I should probably use a smaller image, but that's fine for this. How big is this image actually? No, it's not that big, but on this website it looks really big. Okay, so that's how we can add an image. One thing that you might want to do is put your images in a folder. So this is a good chance to talk about the different types of paths. So let's say I had a lot of images in my project and I want to separate them in a different folder. So I would go to my website and I'd say new folder and call this images and then put my self-portrait in there. If I do that, this image is no longer in the right place. So my image tag is broken. So that's not good. So what I need to do is include the folder in the source for the image. So if I go back to Sublime, what I can do is put the name of the folder and then a slash to represent that it's a folder. So I'll save that, and then my image is back. So if you have things in folders, you need to use a slash. You can have as many folders as you want, but you need that slash to say this is a folder and then this is the image name. That's called a path on a website. One thing that an image needs, let's say that this was still broken. So I'm going to take the image out. One thing an image needs for accessibility is for people who may not have as good vision, so they can't see the images, or their computer may be too slow, so it doesn't load the image. For a lot of different reasons, you might not see the image. And so what you need is what's called alt text. And so this is something that a screen reader would read to somebody who can't see, or if the website was broken, it would show you what was supposed to be there. So to add alt text, you just say alt, and then equals, it's another attribute, and then quotation marks, and say my self-portrait. And so that's what will show up if the image isn't there. And that's what a screen reader, if you can't see, a lot of people who have impaired vision, when they look at the internet, they actually have a reader that reads to them the content. And so if there's just an image there, it can't read the image. But if we have some alt text, it'll say now there's an image of a self-portrait. So let's add in, let's put our path back. So images/self-portrait 1.jpg. And there we go, there's our self-portrait. And so the last thing we're gonna add is a link. Let's add 2 links. So we're gonna do an external link and an internal link. And then we'll stop there. I'm gonna put these before the image because the image is really big. So I'm gonna make an external link first. So I'm gonna create a paragraph, and I'm gonna put 2 links inside of here. So I can put HTML tags inside of other HTML tags. So I'm gonna make a little paragraph and then hit enter and add some links. So let's say this is like my menu. So I'll say menu here. This is a little goofy. This isn't normally how I actually do stuff, but just to kind of demonstrate. So here's my menu. Let's have a link to the class page, just for an example. So I'm gonna go to the class page, go to the home page, and I'm just gonna click on this URL here and copy this. And then I'm gonna go back to Sublime. And if I wanna make a link, I use the anchor tag, which is just an A. So the anchor is like where the link goes to. So I'm gonna make a new tag. I'm gonna choose A, and then close it. And I'm gonna say the MMP 100 class sites. And then I'm gonna do another less than sign and close the A. And so the way that an anchor tag knows where to go is using another attribute, and that's called a hypertext reference, which is href for short. So to add the link in my anchor, I'm gonna go inside the anchor tag and type href equals quotation mark, and now I'm just gonna paste that link that I copied, the whole thing. This is called an external link because it goes to somewhere that's not on our website. So if I go back to Chrome, go to my website and refresh, if I click on this link, it goes to the OpenLab page. Okay, so what if we want the link to go in a different tab? I can use another attribute called the target. The target is the target window. So if I type in target, the type of target that I want is a blank target, which is a new window. So I have to do underscore blank. Okay, so now if I go back to Chrome, if I click on this, now it goes to a new tab. So for an external link, you might want to open a different tab so your website stays open. Let's add one more link, and then I'll stop so you guys can work on these. So the other type of link is an internal link. This is to a page that's on your website. So we actually need another page for this. So let's make the link, and then we'll duplicate this page. So I'm going to make another anchor tag. I'm going to say href equals about.html. So this will be our about page. And then I'm going to type about, and then I'm going to close my anchor tag. And let's actually put our HR below our little menu that we've got going. Okay, so now I'll go back to Chrome. So if I click on About, this is what I get. It's an error because this file doesn't exist. But we can create the file, and then it will exist. So I'm going to go to my folder. Here's my index.html. So instead of recreating all of that HTML, I'm just going to duplicate this page. So I'm going to click on this and just hit Command D. I can also right-click and go to duplicate. I can also do Command C, Command V, however you want to copy it. And then I'm just going to rename this. So if I hit Enter, I can rename it about.html and hit Enter again. Or I can right-click and go to Rename and just call it about.html. So this is an internal link. It's a link that's on our site. So now that this exists, if I refresh, there we've got about.html. So let's go back to Sublime. This is the last thing we'll do. I just want to change this link so I can go back to my home page. So I'll open up about.html. And I'll change this text to say this is the About page. And instead of linking to About, I'll link to Home. And I'll change About to index.html. Okay, so I'm going to refresh this. Now I can go Home, About, Home, About. It's not very exciting, but we can see how an internal link works. Okay, I hit Command S by accident. I do this all the time. I don't want to save this. I'm just going to hit Escape. Okay, that's a lot to go over, but we're going to review all this stuff again on Thursday. I'm gonna put all this code on the Discord so you guys can copy it from there, and I'll upload this video. And we have like 15 minutes left, so just play around with that stuff, and I'll come around if you guys have questions. So let me just put this code on the Discord real quick. Here. Okay, that's the index page. And then the About page is pretty much the same thing, but there's a couple differences. So that's all there. Okay.